Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Helmet to Helmet podcast. Although, as you can see, today there's only one helmet here. Zach is sick, could not make it, and we have a upload schedule to follow. So today you just get me. I'll try to pull it back on being unhinged, as I normally am, so that this show is watchable. But today I'm going to start with, as we usually do, with the betting and college football scores from the weekend, and see what overreactions we have. I did get the details from Zach, who provided me with that it was a sad weekend in betting for the both of us. His BeZRK bets went 0-7, leading him to a record of 31-29. I bet there's got to be a fluky week. Nonetheless, very, very sad. Now, so the first one he had was Alabama minus 6.5 over Oklahoma. You know, Oklahoma's offense not look good. They cannot run the ball. Mateer's great. Might be a top draft pick. Oklahoma not as good. And they not only did Alabama not cover, Oklahoma pulled the upset on Alabama. 23-21. Now Oklahoma goes up to 8th in the nation on the AP poll, and Alabama falls to 10. So I don't think Oklahoma's better than Alabama, though, even though obviously Oklahoma just won. Tough game. Tough game all around for the Crimson Tide. So they fall to 2 losses. I can't imagine, unless they lose again, I can't imagine they miss the playoffs. After they missed the playoffs last year, I don't think the committee wants them gone 2 years in a row. You know, it's roll tide, baby. I hate that I just said that. That sounded really, really wrong. Well, Oklahoma, now they got a shot at making the playoffs. I'm not sure they will. They're 8-2 now as well. So I'm not sure if both of them would make it. I'm sure the committee would love to have 2 SEC teams at least, and they're gonna have more, obviously, with Georgia being as good as they are. And I believe is Texas A&M. A&M. Let's talk about that game. That's not next on the betting list, but what a crazy game for Texas A&M and South Carolina. Now, obviously, as an Ohio State fan, I wanted everybody to lose except us. That includes Indiana as well, just to say, hey, Ohio State's the clear-cut number 1. And the first half of this game, I was like, holy crap, that might actually happen. It was 30-3 at halftime for Texas A&M, and everybody was clowning them. Just crazy. You know, you had like 4 turnovers, I believe, for the A&M offense. Early in this game, Marcel Reed had 2 interceptions, I believe. Yeah, so Marcel Reed, 22 for 39, ended up 22 for 39, 439 yards, 3 touchdowns and 2 picks. Both picks came in the first quarter. This is another thing I've said it before I don't like about teams. I'm not sure how Texas A&M's run game has been going all year. But in this game, it was non-existent, as Reuben Owens II was their leading rusher with 8 attempts for 28 yards. Marcel Reed had 7 attempts for 13 yards, and his longest run was 16, so that means on a couple of those runs he got tackled for a loss. E.J. Smith also had 7 for 25 and a rushing touchdown. I believe that was on the goal line. I actually watched a lot of that game because I was like, holy crap. Texas A&M's getting their butt handed to them by 3-5. Were they 3-5 or 3-6? South Carolina. But wait, does that say 11? No. Okay. No. Okay. Sorry. I thought they ranked South Carolina at 11. I was like, that's not right. They did not. South Carolina falls to 3-7 on a very disappointing season. South Carolina is just a not great program. Lenore Sellers is probably tanking his draft stock this year, honestly. I'd still take him on the Browns. I'd still be okay with that pick, but honestly, I think I want Mendoza at this point. It was Mendoza or Mateer, I think still. Although I think Mendoza is kind of your QB1 of this draft class. Moving on. The next bet he had Southern Miss minus 3.5 at Texas State. So I don't really watch all these like low tier college football games. So I might just run through all these. They did not cover. All of these were losses. Delaware minus 8.5 at SHSU. I don't even know what that is. Kennesaw State did not cover minus 3.5 at Jackson State. Oregon State failed to cover at Tulsa. Memphis, or ECU did cover versus Memphis. Or did Memphis just straight up win that game? Hold up. Let me check real quick. Is that versus ECU? No, Memphis lost by 7 points to East Carolina. That probably kills any, if they had a shred of hope for the college football playoff, that probably kills it. They lost by 4. ECU only favored by plus 2.5. And then the last one that he convinced himself to do was UCLA to cover plus 31.5 at Ohio State. Or Ohio State not to cover. Ohio State did cover because UCLA got torched 48-10. That is a 38-point victory for all those counting at home. This game was fun. This game was really fun. I watched a lot of this game too. Didn't have to work. Oh man, where do I even start? First off, you got Nico Iamaleava, however you say his name, dodging Ohio State with a concussion because last time he played Ohio State, he got his helmet cracked and his butt whooped. And so their backup played. Their backup settled in kind of nice on when the game was like out of reach already. But Carnell Tate missed his second straight game, which I didn't even realize because our offense did not skip a beat. Bo Jackson just running all over the place. He's amazing. Jeremiah Smith, I think, left. He got pulled. I don't even know if he played at all, but if he did play, he got pulled early in the first quarter because we were just killing them that hard. He's not injured. Jeremiah Smith did not suffer an injury. We're just killing UCLA, so we're just not going to let him get hurt. Julian Sayin played like 3 quarters, and then our backup, Kindholtz, went in, immediately ran somebody over and started trash talking. That was cool to see. Because that was at the beginning of the year, we weren't even sure Sayin was going to start. It was kind of a QB battle between him and Kindholtz, but Sayin pulled away, and I'm glad because Sayin is amazing. I got some of the young guys, got some of the backups in. That's nice. As we gear up to play Michigan 2 weeks from now, we got Rutgers next week, but it's Rutgers, so Buckeyes by 40. All right, moving on to some other games. Texas Tech, big win over UCF. Kind of saw that one coming. Georgia Tech squeaks by 2 points versus Boston College. A win is a win for Georgia Tech. They're ranked 15th now. Notre Dame, decisive victory over Pittsburgh, whose coach famously said he does not care. Michigan, this is a game. I turned this game on late because Northwestern was winning. I was like, holy crap. There's no way Michigan loses to a shitty Northwestern team. And they didn't. It was sad. Game-winning field goal for Michigan as time runs out. They're 8-2 despite they're not playing well. Captain Underpants had 2 interceptions in this game. I believe. Let me check real quick. Michigan. Yeah, so Bryce Underwood, 21 for 32, 280, 2 interceptions, no touchdown passes. Michigan can kind of run. They didn't have good rushing stats, but Jordan Marshall. Oh, their leading rusher was at the bottom for some reason. I'm tweaking. Sorry. Jordan Marshall, 19 attempts, 142 yards, a long of 65 and 2 rushing touchdowns. Bryce Underwood, 9 attempts for 30 yards, a long of 15 and a rushing touchdown. Bryson Kuzdal, 15 for 53. So yeah, they ran the ball very well versus Northwestern. Northwestern is not any good. Scoreless first quarter is kind of funny. I'm gonna talk against Michigan. I don't think they're good this year. I think Sharon Moore's a trash head coach. I think Bryce Underwood needs. It's kind of hard because I don't explicitly really hate Bryce Underwood. I don't like that he plays for Michigan, of course. He's the number 1 recruit in the nation, obviously. Got paid the bag to go hand off the ball 30 times at Michigan instead of playing at LSU, where I think he'd be doing a lot better. I think he needs more wide receiver talent and a coach that knows what he's doing. But they're 8-2. I think that's fraudulent. I think Ohio State's going to beat them, and if they don't, I don't know what I'm going to do. It'll be a fun discussion on the podcast episode that comes out after that. BYU, big win over TCU. They are 11th in the nation. Utah smacks Baylor 55-28. Tulane wins. They're ranked. Miami takes care of business versus North Carolina State 41-7. James Madison wins by 48, and they stay ranked. North Texas is ranked with a big win over UAB. Indiana kills Wisconsin. Shocker. Yeah, Wisconsin sucks. Luke Fickell is staying. USC over Iowa. I don't really have any opinion on that. USC is 16th now, 5-point win over Iowa. Iowa's football or college football playoff hopes are kind of out the window now. Especially they kind of were after losing to Oregon, which I think it was their third loss, but now they lost 4 to USC, and it's kind of just over. Virginia does beat Duke. I think the Duke SEC champ window is shut with that. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Zach about that. But yeah, Virginia is 19th. They win 34-17. Ole Miss survives Florida. I think Florida was up at halftime. I think it was only by a few points. I think it was 24-21. Ole Miss pulls away to win by 10. They are 5th still. That's just I think Florida. I think Florida's more competitive than their record. I think they had like a really insanely tough schedule this year. I think DJ Lagway actually has potential still. Crystal Ball is gone. So I think they're a feisty team, but Ole Miss does pull away as a good team should. And now here's the most interesting game. You have the SEC champ game rematch of Georgia versus Texas. Georgia wins by 25. And there are people on the internet comparing the fact that Ohio State beat Texas 14-7 with the fact that Georgia just beat them 35-10 and saying, oh, Ohio State's fraudulent, like, come play a real SEC team like Georgia. You know what I got to say about that? I don't care. Not in the slightest. Because that game was week 1, first of all. Week 1's always weird for every team. It's your first game action of the year. And it was Julian Sands' first ever start. And, like, I think he threw one pass in that game versus Tennessee in the college football playoff last year. But other than that, I think he might have got some action in some blowouts, but he had a super limited action before that. So it's not even like he was playing a lot. So, yeah, it was his first ever start. And Texas' defense at the beginning of the year was actually pretty good, too. And Texas' only touchdown versus Ohio State was on a blatant OPI that he bobbled and it touched the ground and stuff, but the SEC refs that were on that game were like, touchdown, we don't care. So, yeah, come on, Georgia, come play us in the playoffs, except you actually have to make it that far, and you can't lose to Notre Dame. Sorry for you. That is going to do it on the college football segment. I will now move over to the NFL, in which my bets weren't much better than Zach's. I went 1-4, which brings me to an all-time record of 2-4 because I said Parker Washington anytime touchdown. I'm going to count that. Yeah, later this week in the predictions, I'll come back better. I think it was a really weird week this week. I didn't come up with these bets all myself. Like the only one I did come up completely by myself was Cowboys to cover, which they did. That was my one win. Was the Cowboys beat the shit out of the Raiders, which I imagined would happen. Brock Bowers sold my fantasy. Thank you, Brock. Actually, no, he didn't. He got like 15 points. Really, what sold my fantasy league that I have him is that Josh Jacobs got hurt. And since Dan Campbell's taken over play calling, Amon-Ra St. Brown's become like second fiddle to Jameson Williams. This makes zero sense. Please, Dan, please use Amon-Ra. He only got 6 points. Moving on. So my bets, Jaylen Warren. A lot of my bets are just bad luck. The only one I really outright lost was Woody Marks' anytime touchdown. I really thought that the Texans' offense would play better versus the Titans. They're just not good. No C.J. Stroud still this week is General Mills. Woody Marks just didn't score. It's a tight win, 16-13 for the Texans. Titans played pretty well, considering how bad they are. Another one I lost was Jaylen Warren over 71. He had 54, I believe, at half. His first touch was like 30 yards. His first run was like 30 yards, so I was like, holy crap, he's going to do it. Like, obviously, Cincinnati's defense can't tackle. Unfortunately, Jaylen Warren does get injured early in that second half. I don't know if they would refund you your money for that. I saw some sportsbooks were refunding Josh Jacobs' injury because he got hurt in the first half of that game. I did not bet on Josh Jacobs, though. So I think Jaylen Warren would have cashed it if he had played the whole game. Unfortunately, he didn't. It's a now. Justin Herbert, 2 touchdowns. This was what a shocker of a game. Like, what the heck? What the heck happened to the Chargers? Last we saw the Chargers, they whooped the Steelers on Sunday Night Football. Of course, I was in L.A., but the Steelers fans still traveled well, and it was practically a Steelers home game. and they had both their all-pro tackles around. We were like, oh, this is gonna hurt the Chargers because the rest of their O-line just not good. If you see the little PFF rankings in their player intros, yeah, it's like 36 to 36 stuff like that for their center or whoever. So their O-line is not good. Justin Herbert's gonna get killed back there. Marion Hampton might get killed back there if he comes back. I think he should come back in a couple weeks. Yeah, tough show for the Chargers. What a terrible showing for the Chargers. Last we saw them, they were just beating the Steelers on Sunday Night Football in a Steelers crowd in LA. Their O-line, their interior O-line is just bad. Like, their PFF rankings are just in the gutter, and they're missing their 2 all-pro talent tackles. And we figured this would be a mess for them, but after beating the Steelers, just like, oh, maybe they'll be okay. No Hampton this week. He might get killed by that line if he comes back. I believe he's coming back either this week or next, very soon for Hampton. Vidal didn't do much, I don't believe. Let me check real quick, make sure I'm not just speaking out of my butt. Kamani Vidal, 5 for 13. Yeah, bad. They could not run the ball. Justin Herbert was their leading rusher, 3 rushes for 21 yards. Herbert only attempted 18 passes, 10 completions for 81 and a pick. Jaguars defense just tightened up in this game. Trey Lance, Justin Herbert ended up getting pulled, which is where my bet comes in. I had Herbert plus 2+ touchdown passes. Probably wouldn't have gotten it anyway, but I would have liked to see him play, especially in garbage time. Maybe he could have gotten a couple TDs. Harbaugh chooses to pull him for Trey Lance, who plays significantly worse. 3 for 8, 37 yards. It's another bet lost. And then lastly, I had Derrick Henry under 74.5 rushing yards. And now he was doing pretty well. The Browns defense was doing pretty good. Before I get into that, let me recap this Chargers game. Jacksonville scored in every quarter, including 2 touchdowns in the fourth. Chargers got shut out in the second half. And you look at this Chargers team, and they're 7-4. But it feels like they getting the crap kicked out of them every week. It's interesting. This comes out of nowhere for the Jaguars. Unfortunately, hurts the Browns' first-round draft pick that they own from Jacksonville. Jacksonville rises to 6-4. I sure hope that they just collapse down the stretch. Travis Hunter's out. Brian Thomas Jr. has regressed this year. Jacoby Myers looks good. I just really hope the Jaguars keep losing. All right, on to the Browns game. Obviously, I will have my piece about this game. Oh, man. So, Derrick Henry had like 30 yards at half, I believe. Browns defense was on pace to beat him, and unfortunately, Derrick Henry breaks away a big run. I think it's like 60 yards in that one run by himself. He ends up with over 100. It's the first time he's had 100 yards. Second time he's had 100 yards versus the Browns, who usually play him very well. 18 for 103 and a touchdown along the 59. Unfortunate. Unlucky. But what was not unfortunate was the Browns' defensive performance in this game. Wow. I mean, Lamar Jackson had 2 interceptions. Neither really his fault. They're both tipped up in the air, tip drill picks. One goes for a touchdown. Just an amazing performance. Myles Garrett has 4 sacks on Lamar Jackson, who's one of the hardest quarterbacks to sack because of his athleticism. The only really bad play on the Browns' defensive part was the fake tush push with Mark Andrews, who turns it into like a 30-yard rushing touchdown. That hurt to watch. That was just bad. It was a really, really great play call and play design by the Ravens. Mark Andrews also becomes the Ravens' receiving yards franchise leader in this game. Don't really care. It's like almost 6,000. Like, it's not like super duper impressive. Mark Andrews is having a great career, though. I'm not trying to take that away from him. So, Myles Garrett has 15 sacks at Week 11. Of course, in T.J. Watt's historic 22.5 sack season in 2021, he had 16.5 at this point, although I'm not sure if he had the bye week yet. Browns have had their bye week 2 weeks ago. Myles Garrett is currently on a season pace for 25.5 sacks, which would break Michael Strahan and T.J. Watt's shared record of 22.5. Just amazing year from Myles Garrett. I'm not sure there's really any other defensive players that are standing out as much as he is right now. Brian Burns is up there, but he's behind a few sacks now. I think he only had 1. I think he has 12 on the year. Nick Benito will be in the mix, I'm sure. Surtain would have been if he hasn't missed the past few games. I don't think he's going to have the push this year with that missed time. So deploy my man Myles Garrett. Give him a second one. He's deserved it, especially if he breaks the sack record. The glaze will be through the roof for me. But in this game, there's a certain someone that made his season debut. Dylan Gabriel goes out with a concussion, and Shedeur Sanders makes his NFL regular season debut, in which he looks like complete ass. Shedeur Sanders, coming in the second half, went 4 for 16 with 47 yards and an interception. One of those completions was a 25-yard strike over the middle to Harold Fannin, and that looked really good. It was I think it was the longest pass of the Browns this year. It was either that or second to one Dylan Gabriel, and Dylan Gabriel's had 10 games, 9 or 10 games to do this. He had 13.5 QBR. That's not good. However, Wyatt Teller came out and said that he's never heard Shedeur Sanders' cadence. Shedeur Sanders has never practiced with the first team because Kevin Stefanski just does not like him. I don't think Kevin Stefanski wanted to pick him. I think Haslam and DePodesta forced that pick. Of course, DePodesta not here anymore. It's just it's insane how dirty they did Shedeur Sanders. He's completely set up to fail. However, it is expected that Dylan Gabriel will still be in concussion protocol this week versus the Raiders, and Shedeur Sanders is 99% going to get the start. So full week of practice with the starters, game plan surrounding him. Let's see what Stefanski can come up with. And speaking of Stefanski, I've turned my head on him. I think he should be fired, and this week is just no different. Even with Tommy Rees calling plays, Quinshon Judkins goes 17 for 59. I think there's a better game plan, or at least play calling, when Tommy Rees is calling plays, because Dylan Gabriel, even though he got hurt, only threw 10 passes. And Shedeur Sanders only threw so many passes in his short time because we were down. But the Ravens, I mean, the Browns defense has to defend such short fields and drives. And with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on the field, you're only letting up 23 points. One of them was on that fake tush-push play. And they also supplied a touchdown. The Browns defense did everything to win this game. You get 2 picks and 4 sacks from Myles Garrett. I think. Hold up. I think there's more sacks. Yeah, Mike Hall Jr. gets a sack in his short season. So, 5 sacks on Lamar, 4 from Myles Garrett, 1 from Mike Hall, and 2 picks, 1 return for a touchdown. You get that stat line from your defense, you win that game. Unless you have a historically terrible offense led by just a trash head coach. He's not good. Kevin Stefanski's not a good head coach. He's really not. Because that's his whole shtick is he's the offensive genius. He's an offensive guru. His offensive structure is untouchable. Apparently it's not. We scored 20 points 2 times all season. One of them was under Tommy Rees as play caller. You get a pick 6 in this game and you score 16 points. The defense legitimately scores almost half the points you score. What are you doing? There's no words. I'm racing in my mind to come up with what to say. There's nothing. And it sucks because Andrew Berry's had a really great draft. Those quarterbacks are not looking good. But other than that, Fannin, Judkins, Mason Graham. Also, the trade, Travis Hunter has not looked super elite this season. He's not been terrible, but he hasn't looked elite. And then he got hurt. That trade to go and get Mason Graham, who's been a stud, was amazing. And it's just so I don't really want to fire him because I think he can draft well, but I think a lot of GMs can draft well. I think him and Stefanski are going to have to be gone. I don't think there's recovering from this as a head coach. Kevin Stefanski's never had a winning record, I don't believe, as a head coach. And it's not like he has a terrible record, but he's under 500. There's nothing left to say. There's nothing. We are just in a terrible situation. The only times I watched this game was when it was on Red Zone, and then when Shedeur Sanders went in, I turned it on just to see how that went. Not good. There's just nothing left. There's nothing left to do. Like, we lost this game. I guess we tank. We get a better draft pick. That's cool. That's the biggest positive from this game. Not even Shedeur Sanders getting in the game. The biggest positive is our draft pick is slightly better. That's it. I'm gonna move on. There's nothing left to say. I'll run through these games real quick and give some thoughts. Zach went 12-3 with the picks. I went 9-6. A lot of the ones we disagreed with, of course, he won because I really suck at this. Apparently, I'm 55-45. He's 66-34. Yeah, that's not good. I'm down by 11 games. We will do our picks again later this week. So Jets Patriots. This game kind of went how we thought it would. I started Travion Henderson in fantasy this week. Did not let me down. Like 30 fantasy points. Patriots win by multiple scores. Yeah, that's all we figured. First drive by the Jets looked pretty good because Justin Fields didn't throw the ball. It was like 1 or 2 passes on that drive. Other than that, they just died on the field. Yeah, that's it. Commanders Dolphins in Madrid. Not a great game. A lot of kicks. A couple missed kicks by the Commanders. This is just 2 bad teams going at it overseas. Dolphins pull away with the win. Kind of how we expected. We both picked the Dolphins for this game. Bears Vikings. I liked this game because J.J. McCarthy played like ass. J.J. McCarthy is terrible. That's it. That's the 9 did not show up today for the Vikings except for the final drive where they actually did take a lead late. However, the Bears come back, make a game-winning field goal. Bears win. That's what we both picked. And yeah, J.J. McCarthy just not any good. Let me see his box score real quick. 16-32, 150 yards, 1 TD, 2 picks. Wow, he is bad. I'm watching that game on Red Zone. Minnesota Vikings, they get a field goal in the first quarter, don't score again until they try to make a late comeback bid with 14 in the fourth, falls short. At least he's kind of plays better in the fourth quarter, but like 10 times 0 is 0. So, like, I'm so happy he sucks. Moving on, Panthers-Falcons. This is one of the games we disagreed on. Of course, Zach picks the Panthers. I picked the Falcons. Falcons very close to winning this. Unfortunately, Drake London goes out. I think he played most of the game, but he does leave. He is not going to play this Sunday. Michael Penix suffers a season-ending knee injury, and that's really bad for him. He, in his time at college in Indiana and Washington, he had 2 torn ACLs and 2 rotator cuff tears. I believe it was rotator cuff. It was some kind of massive shoulder injury. So these injuries are kind of stacking up on him. He's got another season-ending knee injury. Although I don't believe it's an ACL. I think it's an LCL. So it shouldn't be anything too much. Panthers pull away. Panthers have a better record than the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's hilarious. Bryce Young was really the story of this game. Of course, a couple weeks after I say I'm out on Bryce Young because he sucks, he sets the Panthers' single-game passing yards record. 31 for 45, 448 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Clean game. This is really the first game since Rico Dowdle took over that Rico Dowdle didn't do much, and the Panthers still won. He went 19 attempts for only 45 yards. That's 2.4 yards per attempt with a long of 6. Rico stuffed most of the game, and Bryce Young puts the game on his back. Teteroa McMillan has a breakout game. 8 catches, 130 yards, and 2 TDs. Just nuts. Xavier Liga has 4 for 83 and a touchdown as well. Second-year wide receiver. The Panthers really brought it today after winning in overtime by a game-winning field goal. After I said I was out on Bryce Young, he gets it done. Unk Bowl 2, Flacco versus Aaron Rodgers. This is the revenge of the Yinzers. Jamar Chase just kind of strapped up all game. He did not really do much. Chase Brown had a pretty good game, 99 yards, almost 100. Let me see. Jamar Chase, 3 for 30. No touchdowns. T. Higgins had 3 for 63 with a touchdown. Very good performance by the Steelers defense. Another funny story is Jalen Ramsey and Jamar Chase get into it. Of course, Jamar Chase caught on camera spitting on Jalen Ramsey, and then denying it. Still gets suspended for that. He will miss this next game. Jalen Ramsey, of course, gets ejected for swinging on Jamar Chase when he gets spit on. I don't like Jalen Ramsey or the Steelers, but that's fair enough. It was kind of funny. He just no second thought, bam, right in the helmet, and he got ejected, but it was still pretty funny. Yeah. So another big story is Aaron Rodgers getting hurt in this game. Mason Rudolph comes in and plays pretty well. Of course, Cincinnati Bengals defense isn't going to put much of a fight up. I mentioned earlier in the betting segment, Jaylen Warren also gets hurt right before hitting his over. He had finished with 62 yards. So tough for the Steelers. Maybe a little bit of a pure hick victory. But I don't think Aaron Rodgers' injury is that serious, nor is Jaylen Warren's. So I think they'll be okay. They keep pace with the Ravens to keep the lead of the AFC North. Next, we got Packers-Giants. Of course, the Giants have a pretty good record against the Packers in the 21st century. Was not today, though. Jameis Winston throws multiple no, not multiple. He had a pretty bad pick to end that game. I think the DB called it out of bounds. I'd have to rewatch that. Anyway, it looks like a bad pass from Jameis Winston towards the end of that game to seal the win for the Packers. However, the wide receiver Jalen Hyatt just stops on his route for no reason. I remember wanting Hyatt in the draft and was mad when the Giants jumped us to get him. We ended up picking Cedric Tillman right after. Y'all can keep Hyatt. I'm cool with Tillman. Tillman's a lot better than Hyatt at this point. Giants season is over. It's been coach is gone. Jameis Winston didn't play horribly. He did his thing. He did Jameis Winston things. Just lost the game. That's the one. Me and Zach both picked the Giants. Packers get back on track after a losing skid. And yeah, they win. Just kind of a game that happened. Not really too exciting. Not too boring. I touched on the Texans game, 16-13. Slight win for the Texans. Just they beat the Titans because they're Titans. If they played any other game or any other team, probably lose. Buccaneers Bills. This was probably this is probably game of the week. Baker and Josh going at it. Zach had. This is one of the ones I actually won this over Zach. I picked the Bills. He picked the Bucks. Josh Allen. This is MVP form. Josh Allen. Even if he had 2 or 3 interceptions, but 3 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns. James Cook was invisible except for a receiving touchdown, which my fantasy team doesn't like. However, I still won, so it's okay. So it was in one league I still won despite having James Cook, and in a different league I lost solely because my opponent had Josh Allen, who had 45 fantasy points. That was the story of this game. Baker and the Bucks even kept pace for a while, but this was a win the Bills needed. After losing to the Dolphins, this is a good bounce back game against a good team. Battered, yes, but the Buccaneers are still good despite their injuries. Big statement win for the Bills and Josh Allen. 49ers Cardinals. This game is really only the only thing notable from this game was that it was a return of Brock Purdy, throwing dimes to George Kittle. My fantasy team appreciates that one too. I have George Kittle in. No, I just won, I think. You guys don't care. But Jacoby Brissett with 47 completions. He went 47 for 57 in this game. That is the most completions in a game in NFL history by any player, and he lost by 20 points. Arizona Cardinals football, that's what that is. The Cardinals are dead. I don't know what's going on with them. Jacoby Brissett does look a lot better than Kyler Murray, however. I think Kyler Murray might get moved in the offseason. I don't know how long their coach has left. Jonathan Gannon has left either. We'll just have to wait and see what happens with them. Big win for the 49ers. Brock Purdy looked good in his return. George Kittle looked good, had good synergy with Brock Purdy. Christian McCaffrey stays doing Christian McCaffrey things. Big kickoff return that set up a McCaffrey 1-yard touchdown to start the game. Yeah, just a big win for the 49ers. The final early slate game, Rams versus Seahawks. This is another great game despite a lower score. It actually wasn't really a great game. But it was two good teams going at it. And I picked the Seahawks and Zach picked the Rams. This is a game he won over me. And I guess one thing I failed to realize was that Sam Darnold was playing a big game against a good team. And he cannot do that until I get proven otherwise. He cannot do that. He had 29 for 44 for 274 yards. That's not bad. But he had 0 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Complete meltdown against a good team. Kenneth Walker had 16 for 67 and a tutty. So he played pretty well. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 9 catches for 105 yards. His great campaign continues. Jonathan Taylor will probably take his Offensive Player of the Year. Jonathan Taylor should win MVP. Actually, you might have to give it to Matthew Stafford in this game. Matthew Stafford, this is a big game for him. Lesser on the stat sheet this time around, 15 for 28, 130 and 2 touchdowns. But a big win over a division rival, both 7-2. Rams go to 8-2. Seahawks fall to 7-3. They will play again in a couple weeks, I believe. And that NFC West race is heating up. But Rams get the big win there. This is another game Zach took over me, was Broncos-Chiefs. The Chiefs are the 9 seed in the AFC. I mean, man, the Chiefs are 5-5. It's not looking good. I think it's the first time they haven't scored 20 points since when was it? It was the Broncos game last year at the very end of the season when they sat all their starters. I believe Carson Wentz was their quarterback for that game, so that's how that goes. Game-winning field goal for the Broncos at the last second. They were tied to take a three-point win. This is just I thought with Surtain out, I thought the Broncos defense was going to be a little vulnerable. Riley Moss did have a big PI call in this game that set up a Chiefs touchdown. I believe that was a touchdown to Travis Kelce. But the Broncos pull it together, hold the Chiefs to 19. They go to 9-2. And the Chiefs and Colts play next week. So I like to ask my Broncos fans, who do you root for? Because if the Colts win, they're going to take your 1 seed. But you don't want to root for the Chiefs. So I don't know. It's interesting. But I did not see the Broncos winning this game. I really didn't. I just thought their injuries were too much to key players. Not that they have a lot of injuries, just to key players like Surtain. But they get it done. And this is all in all, unless like a magnificent collapse happens, this all in all seals up the AFC West for the Broncos. Because like who knows what's going on in LA? They're 7-4. They got a better record than the Chiefs, and we don't talk about the Raiders. They don't exist. But yeah, just huge win for Sean Payton and the Broncos. Just really happy for them. Happy that the Chiefs are just losing. They're at 500 through 11 weeks. It's great. Sunday Night Football, yet again, another game Iowa lost, and Zach picked the right team. Eagles-Lions. So I thought Dan Campbell called plays last week and put up like 40 points. And, yeah, it wasn't against the Eagles. It was against a worse defense than the Eagles, but I was like, maybe he's got something going. And then the Lions' offense is just shut down completely in this game. Only 1 touchdown with a missed extra point. Of course, the kicker, Jake Bates, makes a 50-plus yard field goal and then misses an extra point. Jahmyr Gibbs had 5 catches for 107 receiving yards. Holy crap. I mean, he had a long catch of 42. That's interesting. He also rushed 12 for 39. David Montgomery, 6 for 27. That's Eagles defense. Jalen Carter and them, they just stuffed that run. Jared Goff goes 14 for 37, 255, and a TD and a pick. Just tough game for the Lions offense. The Lions defense played pretty well, kept the Eagles only to 16 points. Of course, the Eagles offense is suffering under a trash offensive coordinator. So who knows if it was the offensive coordinator not being able to score or the Lions defense playing well. I think it's a little bit of both. But Eagles get it done on Sunday night. Pretty boring game. But the Eagles are now, let me check real quick. Eagles are now 8-2. So that's the number 1 seed in the NFC, I'm pretty sure. Lions fall to 6-4. Lions are 3rd in the NFC North now, behind the Bears are number 1 and the Packers are number 2. Because the Packers are 6-3-1, so they got that tie, puts them over the Lions. I'm sure the Lions will be okay. I wouldn't be surprised to see 3 playoff teams from the NFC North. I think the Vikings will miss because they employ J.J. McCarthy at quarterback and did not re-sign Sam Darnold. Lastly, we have the Cowboys and Raiders. This is my bet. I got right. I touched on Cowboys cover. Just a total whooping of a bad team the way it should be. Geno Smith said to blame the losses on him, and he is completely correct. Had another pick in this game, 27 for 42, 238, tutty pick. Ashton Jeanty only had 6 attempts for 7 yards. 6, 7. With a long rush of 11, which means he lost yardage. I feel bad for Ashton Jeanty, but with Kenny Clark and Quinton Williams on that Cowboys defensive line, Quinton Williams had a game in his Cowboys debut. He went off, and Ashton Jeanty, like, the Cowboys defensive tackles I just mentioned were basically taking the handoff for Ashton Jeanty. That O-line got mauled all night long. Yeah, Raiders fall for 2-8. They're one of the worst teams in the league, and they play my Cleveland Browns next week with Shedeur Sanders starting. So let's see. Cowboys climb to 4-5, game out of 500. They're still a very competitive team. I don't know if they make the playoffs. Wouldn't be surprised if they don't. But they're not out of it completely yet.
Welcome back to another edition of Boils My Milk. I know this podcast kind of crazy. We had to record separately. I was very, very sick yesterday when Luke recorded. So first, very big credit to Luke for filling in for the majority of this podcast and doing it solo. So I have to give him all the credit in the world. But now that I'm feeling better, I can properly give my Boils My Milk, which this week is going to be fans that claim that they only lost because their opponent treated it like their Super Bowl. This has become one of the dumbest arguments I've seen. It floats around mostly in college football, it seems like. And it just seems like an excuse for your players being lazy or not caring, because I guarantee you that the players care the same about each game. I don't really think they treat a rivalry as a Super Bowl or something like that. We've got to stop this culture in college football especially. I can personally say, as an Iowa State fan, I see numerous Iowa fans saying that the only reason why they lost to Iowa State is because it's our Super Bowl. I hope my team treats every game like it's the Super Bowl, so that way they win every game or compete at their highest level. Sorry if your team doesn't care or your players don't give enough effort because they treat it like it's playing a Division III school. That's a problem with your school, not a problem with the school who treats it like a Super Bowl, so to say. But that has become one of the dumbest arguments in all of sports. It needs to go away. We need to kill it while it's still fresh. I mean, I've had enough of it. I've had enough of the Super Bowl claim. It's just an annoying argument now. It doesn't really solve anything or prove anything. So that's going to be my Boils My Milk segment this week.
Ooh, one more thing. One more thing I want to mention is that the refs were horrible this week. Of course, some things to go over real quick. There's an awful pass interference call on Rocky Ya-Sin that ended the game in an Eagles win. Eagles would probably win that game without that, but still just an awful way to end a primetime game. It was just a paper-soft PI call. Rocky Ya-Sin barely touched him, and he was getting hand fighting with, I believe it was A.J. Brown. Just awful, awful call. In the Chiefs and Broncos game, a ref runs over Sean Payton on the sidelines and then throws a flag, because technically, yeah, the coaches can't interfere with the ref. That's a rule. But Mike Tomlin did it a couple of years ago, and he got away with it. But it's the Steelers. It's the Steelers. That's all I'm saying. Although it is the Chiefs, probably it's an accident and is a by the book call, but it's still dumb. The ref ran into him and then called a flag. Refs are just soft. And then speaking of refs not doing their job correctly, so there's a rule in the NFL when the offense makes a substitution to a different personnel, the defense is allowed to, the offense has to wait and let the defense substitute. And in the Browns and Ravens game, the Browns did a personnel switch mid-drive. That's normal. And when this happens, the ref is supposed to stand between the center and the quarterback, telling them not to snap the ball, and then he'll back up when the defense gets their time to substitute if they do. And in this game, so Dylan Gabriel, being a rookie quarterback, probably didn't have that on his mind, and the ref wasn't standing between him and the center while the Ravens had their mandatory sub time, and so he snapped the ball. He snapped the ball to run a play. And the ref runs into the middle of the play. He could have gotten himself hurt because, yeah, there's grown football players, grown men running around full of pads and helmets. Stops the play. Luckily, everyone recognizes it and stops playing. And throws a flag. It's a 15-yard penalty. And this was a drive. This was one of the interception that did not get returned. Great field position. I believe it was the 5-yard line that the Browns started on. And it's a 15-yard penalty that pushed it back. And, the Browns offense isn't making up for that. So we ended up kicking a field goal. It's the ref's own fault. He wasn't standing there. The ref has to be held accountable he has to be in between the quarterback and the center, especially when you don't have a experienced quarterback. You have a rookie quarterback like Dylan Gabriel who might not be thinking about that. Might not be on the top of his head. He's probably thinking about scoring on great field position. But no, you fail to do your job, so you throw a flag on the Browns and back them up 15 yards. Anyway, so I just want to get that out of my system. Refs are awful this week. They need to be better. I think they need to be held accountable, and I think the NFL needs to hire full-time refs. I feel like a lot of refs are just fanboys who want to hang out with professional athletes, and they can just call whatever they want, and they're right because they're refs. Something needs to happen.
Everybody, please comment how awesome Luke is for doing this podcast by himself. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. I have no idea if Luke even outroed this, so this might all get cut. But have a good week, guys.